My name is Olivia Jones. I am a co-owner here at Prism Spaces. I'm here with Kala Cullars, and we are here to do our second segment of what I like to call Dome Discussions. We're going to be one of our featured artists here at Prism Spaces. We've already talked to Emma, but let's talk about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Sure. Super excited to be here, so thank you again for the opportunity. I'm clearly not from this planet, but in order to be in context, Chicago, born and raised on the South Side. Currently a visual artist, so I do a lot of abstract expressionism.
Okay.
I write poetry. I love to perform my poetry. Have not done so since I was in Berlin, just because I'm also in grad school.
Okay.
Finishing up very soon.
Okay.
Final
Congrats.
countdown. Thank you.
What are you studying?
Forensic psychology. So like intersectionality of law and psychology, a lot of work in the court system, a lot of work in corrections, a lot of work with marginalized communities to like help them with having a voice, not just representing them, but I will do a lot of representation in court for people who I think have been judicially wronged. And what else am I doing? I'm doing an internship too on top of all of that madness. And that's working at an extended residential care facility with individuals who have substance use disorder, gambling disorder, alcohol use disorder, providing individual counseling and group services for them. And I'm an open book. What would you like to know? I feel like that's a lot.
Okay. Wow. So the first thing that stands out to me is that you do a lot. And so you've got, your art is kind of compartmentalized a little bit, sort of. So how do you make it all work? Like, I'm just trying to think of like hours in the day. You just said internship, grad, like when do you have time to create?
Yeah. I think for me, everything is creation.
Okay.
And so like, as opposed to having like each thing be compartmentalized, I'm learning more about how to synthesize like everything that I stand for and believe in and actually like am participating in. So like a lot of my experiences, like carrying so much vicarious trauma from the inmates I've worked with or just like the clients I've had in general, I translate that into my artwork. And so it becomes a cathartic experience in which I can hold their pain and then release it for them, like almost like artistic surrogacy.
Ooh.
Yeah, that just made that shit up, but it sounds legit.
I love it when people just make stuff up.
But like taking
great.
such really dense and heavy and raw emotions and dark emotions and putting them onto canvas, but also being careful not to create from that energy, but more so as an expression of how we can transcend some of these states and like make it something beautiful. So their pain or my pain or like our shared collective pain turn into like pigment or something that just is much more than what the individual experience was. So like going from trauma to healing usually is what it is. And so everything inspires me, which is how I can then still create. And sometimes it looks like 5 minutes here, make sure I put some kind of like pigment onto something. And I have, I don't know, my workspace, my kitchen has like spray paint in it. I wake up to canvases like everywhere. As I'm looking at them, I'm realizing, oh, that's speaking to me in a different way, or that's unfinished. I'm also long-winded, so feel free to fucking cut me off at any point in time.
No, not at all.
But yeah, my days are very long.
Okay.
And they're like 17 hours, 15 hours, but somehow, I don't think it's me, I don't know if it's a higher power, it's clearly not me doing it myself because it's something that's beyond what I think the human capability or like ceilings are. But it happens, and it looks like, what can I do today, and how can I serve, and how can I make the most out of this day, because like, I don't know, we're not getting this back, like we'll never be here in this setting, even again in the same way that we are today, so it's important for me to like do the most, like and be hyper productive. That's when I'm my most still and like focused. Yeah, that's also a lot.
I'm so excited. Like just hearing about what inspires you really makes me excited about what you're going to bring to this space. Because one thing, when we initially met Emma, I was like, oh, this is great. But then I was like, it's February. That's Black History Month. We need, like, something that's really important to me is that, like, our entire staff is Black. I don't know if you noticed that. But our entire staff is Black. Everyone that we try to employ or work with, collaborate with, is Black. And as we've become business owners, it's been a little tough to like find that, and I'm even happier that we found it in the artistic realm, because that's where, like, yeah, I even told them, I was like, I need to see brown faces. You have any brown faces? You know? So yeah, but, and just having art that speaks to everyone, us, but then also opening the minds of others. One question I had for Emma that I'll ask you, why a co-working space and not like your traditional gallery?
A lot of reasons. I think that the traditional gallery, within that space, there's a lot of underrepresentation of artists of color. It's very challenging to get into that very like tight-knit circle of social status or class, and like where I'm in it for like superficial purposes, and it's less about the artwork and less about like the actual guttural kind of experience of what it is to create and really promote. And it's like a fixed fight, you know what I mean? And so would I like to support an entity that has oppressed people historically, like even women, like without being a woman of color, just women in general, like no. And so similar to the mission of like this workspace, it's important for me to like invest and pour into and have this energy exchange in spaces where there are people who look somewhat like me, and by that I don't mean necessarily like our aesthetic, but who sharing like the same elevated kind of like mentality, or just who have been awakened to a degree and realize like this is where we are suffering as a people, and like how can we then grow and provide more opportunities for everybody to come together and like be seen. Because I think like historically we have not had voices, we have been invisible on the senses, we've been like there's been just a lack of visibility in general. So this is also neat because it's just like a circular exchange of some like where's that idea where I think it's synergy, where like the parts somehow they all matter, but when you bring them together and have this mastermind kind of group similar to what you stand for, then it becomes something much more like you're creating just as a result of like bringing your presence together. Like it reminds me of where two or more are gathered, like right there is God, or there's this omnipresence that is more powerful than all of us combined. And you can feel that happens here. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's great that art is in the community and seen by members who are like actively in the community, and that happens here, not necessarily in the gallery that's just like thinking about profit or capitalism. And I think that's really different too. So what motivates a person, what motivates a company, like those, is it based in altruism? Those things really matter to me. So it's like, why not this space, and why not more spaces doing it exactly this? Because this is how we like heal communities and really bring people together in different levels. I don't know if that answers the question.
It does.
Okay, cool.
It does, definitely. Is there a specific piece that you're most excited about showcasing here?
Oh yeah. So I'm working on a new piece.
Okay.
I have not talked about it. I've not shown it anywhere. It's very special to me. It's gonna be shown here, yes, for the first time, and it's where I really feel like being a writer first for like 20 years and then transitioning into art, which is a really crazy story. It's been challenging, and it's been a process of like really learning how to articulate and express with precision onto a canvas, and like how to switch from just literary or words to describe an experience, or really like, you know, bring it into fruition versus using a canvas and like different pigment for that. And so this piece I feel like just represents everything that I am. It's almost like an extension of self on canvas, and I think the important part about my work is that it's honest always. That's first, but that it helps people really escape from like these perfectionistic kind of like ideals or constructs that we have. And it's just not what you need it to be. It is exactly what it is. And so having something like that that's very colorful and energetic and like lively, but also very deep, and like there's some like levels beneath it, you know what I mean? Some layers, I think, that tap into just like all of our human experience. And it's one of those things where when you look at it, it looks back at you, but it's you. Like, so it's almost like the canvas becomes a mirror. And when I know that that's happened, I'm just like, oh, okay, we brought it to life officially. Like, it's something more than I would have even imagined it being. And it starts to kind of dictate to me what it wants from me in terms of creation. Like, I know that sounds really trippy, but like it's a whole kind of like collaborative experience, me and this animate canvas. And so that piece, I think, is just like my strongest piece, because it's like the pinnacle of like the work that I've created before.
I'm excited. I'm really excited to see, like, and it's interesting because, like, I've seen some of Emma's work, and I've seen a couple of your pieces that Emma showed us when she brought you up or introduced you for the idea. But I'm wondering, as two artists, how will you guys make it work? You know, like, we have a lot of space, a lot of wall space. So is that something that you all talked about, or are you just, like, kind of taking your own corners, or?
Yeah. I don't believe in planning.
Okay.
Like, executive functioning is fucked here.
Okay.
So it's just the inability to, like, execute in that way.
Yeah.
I tend to be way more spontaneous.
Okay.
And for me, that feels like being intuitively governed or led. And so I think that's another part of just, like, the experience when we have this body of work. I have this body of work already created, and Emma does too, and, like, it's been created for many years, right? And it's like the culmination of all of those things, and then we go into curating together. So it's almost like, you know, people have art walls or collage walls these days. It's like collaging all of our thoughts and emotions and experiences together into just this one very, like, unique experience or, like, end product. So, and I think her pieces and my pieces obviously will complement and contrast, and, like, they'll fight each other in ways, but, like, it's a good fight, you know what I mean, where it's just, like, so much to really be consumed by, and also to consume and to pull you in and, like, spit you back out, and just it's different. It goes back to, like, the synergistic kind of, like, element of, hey, by myself this is wonderful, but, like, what happens when we bring our minds together on canvas and then allow other people to then, or invite other people into that experience, like, something else is created. So, like, curation is creation. That's a very long way of saying that.
Curation is creation.
Yeah, it's co-creation.
Final question for you. As a fellow artist, or retired, I know there are challenges, and I feel like each artist deals with, like, obviously their own unique challenges. Would you mind sharing one or two of yours, and, you know, how you've overcome them?
Sure. So I think
how you're working on them if you haven't overcome them
yet. Yeah, that's fair too.
Yeah,
I like that. I think to the earlier question about, like, why this space and not an traditional art gallery, well, because they're monopolized usually in a very, like, Eurocentric kind of fashion by a dominant culture, you know, and I think that is a challenge that we all face when entering this world and, like, wanting to be relevant or wanting to even be seen, because the art needs to be seen. Like, that's when it becomes even more important. It makes a statement. So some of my challenges have been, like, just how high of a price it is to participate in, like, most fairs. So I'm doing some art fairs coming up and, like, a couple different exhibits, and you have to pay in order to even exist, almost. And if you don't have that access or those resources, then technically you don't really exist. Like, I can't think of a better way to say it. So that's been challenging, because I see so many artists who are just wildly talented and incredible, and if it wasn't an issue of, like, socioeconomic status, could easily be at the top. And I don't mean the top in terms of capital, I mean just, like, people who really deserve to have their work because their work will do something for them, like, are missing that opportunity because that gap isn't bridged because of, like, financial reasons. Personal challenges, I think I talked about time scarcity and time management, and figuring out, like, this is something that matters to me so much. Like, it is one of the purposes I think that, you know, I'm here for, and so I have to create time even for it. And if that means at the expense of eating, or, like, my friends laugh at me, they're like, why don't you cook? Because I'd rather paint, because it's either or, and sometimes, like, it competes with Maslow's lower hierarchy, but, like, for me, this is how I feed myself, this is nourishment, you know what I mean? And it does require me to, like, enter into this very strange hermetic kind of phase in which it seems like isolation, but it's like I have to be quiet enough for me to really, like, tap into something different or higher. And that means I may not have the best interpersonal relationships for a season because I'm painting, or because I'm writing, or because, like, the papers are 30 pages. But this is all seasonal, and I know that. you can hear myself talk. I'm like, it is just until April. You graduate, and it's just until
soon come.
Yeah, and it doesn't really come because then I busy myself with like way more things. But like, this is what I'm alive for. This is aliveness. Like, right? It's being able to just like really, I don't know, co-create, orchestrate, like be in symphony or in harmony with all that is, you know. And so those are some of like the micro challenges. I also have like ADHD, which means I can be hyper focused, but if you pull me out of it, it's really, I can, you know what I mean? It's hard for me to re-enter that phase, especially with art. You can sit down in front of a canvas and it can take hours before I'm really ready or in that flow state. So like, I don't enjoy being pulled out of it, you know, so distractions and being able to tune them out, however I like through meditation, mindfulness practices, so many things. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. I think a question that naturally comes to mind that probably wouldn't be spoken, but you're asking, is like, how do you balance, like, because I think this is also a challenge of mine, being pro people of color, person of color. For me, that doesn't negate being for everyone else. It's just like the rest of the world has also been for like self-serving in a way. So being in like a position of power or prestige and like wanting to do the right thing with that, like does that ever come across to other people? Like, do they misunderstand and think like, well, you're excluding this race or not really considering this? So I think that's something I have to balance. It's like, no, I'm actually saying that because I want to work specifically with marginalized communities doesn't mean that I am racist or prejudiced or not for everyone, like eating or doing well or thriving, but it does mean that there's been a deficit here. There's been like, you know, a dent in like the economy here, like what we're capable. There's been so many limitations, even historical like limitations. So how do you balance that when people are concerned that this may be biased or like you may have certain biases, which again, I think are not biases. I think are just like, hey, this is my way of really giving back and seeing where I can be useful, you know?
Well, I'll start with Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in the United States of America. And like, for instance, when I first started working at what was platform Coworking Wicker Park, just back this last March, there was only one person of color here. One singular person that has also been a member here for years. A woman of color, a black woman. And it kind of hurt me when we went out for happy hour. We went out for happy hour and she really kind of like not broke down. She didn't cry or anything, but she was really trying to like explain to me the impact of me working there and now owning it. Like, her seeing that happen for her, it was just like really inspiring. And I don't really consider myself to be an inspirational person, so it was really good to hear that, but it was also kind of a red flag for me personally, just because I am creating my own version of corporate America, and my version of corporate America has all types of people. It has white people, black people, purple people, green people, you know, non-binary people, straight people, gay people. Like, everyone needs to work. Everyone needs to make money, and a lot of smart people are kept out based off of how they look and how they present. Not that I can fix that. I can't change it all, but at least for the people that are here, I want to create that space. And a goal of mine is to have more people of color working here, you know, because we do have, there are black remote workers, there are black entrepreneurs, there are small black owned businesses, but in a segregated city, we're in Wicker Park. You know, it may not be convenient. So it's like figuring out all of those things. It's like, I realize that I have to kind of contort if I want to get what I want. And I may not be able to have, like, you know, I don't know, brown humans here day in and day out, but I'm okay with you know, I'm okay with our members and whoever walks through the door, I'm okay with them looking at our walls and having that be a reflection of what we stand for, what we value. And yeah, just to make it like, just like spark, you know, just like spark. Adding spark to people's work. You know, Emma made a really good point about people keep coming back. You know, like they may pass your work one time, you're like, huh. You know, they see it again and again and again and again, and then it's like, we change. They're like, where's my painting? And it's like, it's a new quarter. We got new works now, you know? And so that's the feeling that I want people to have. But that didn't answer your question. Your question was, how do I balance? Honestly, I think it's that person's problem. Like, if you have a problem with me only hiring Black people, then you shouldn't be here. It's a Black-owned business. Who am I to not hire people that look like me? Shit, I came from environments where people didn't look like me, and I didn't, you know, I used to work in corporate America, and I wanted nothing more than to, like, get out of it. And so every phase for the last, I don't know, couple of years has just been me getting out of it, and now we're out and creating our own. So yeah.
People saying that this is also a representation of what's happening here. Like, you accept what's going on. There's no fight within you, which is beautiful. You know what I mean? I like what you said, that other people have to own the problem for themselves.
Right.
And it's the same thing that happens in the world where, like, different people, different nationalities hire only their, like, the cultural groups or whatnot. And it's been happening in our country for a very long time, so why not have this microcosm in which you get to control what happens, right? Or that is against that.
And demanding the respect. Too. Something that's very important to me. You don't get to treat my people just anyway.
I don't think you have to demand it. I think you're just naturally going to have it. Like, right, because of, like, how whatever you're emitting, that surety, that confidence, like, even standing behind your statement so strongly, it's just like, that's naturally, like, almost earned.
Earn it. Yes. Well, this has been Dome Discussion, Prism Spaces with Kala Cree Cullars. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can't wait to see the work on the walls.